the Jury Insights panel. What we brought to you are the 2 judges from our last year's jury. As you see, we have Javier Calvar, Group Service Line Leader, Market Strategy and Understanding Innovation from IPSOS. When Javier was reviewing the entries in 2021, he's basically doing it in UK because he's one of our regional international judges. But I was just told that he's been relocated to Hong Kong. Only that this current moment, he's having his holidays in UK. So Javier joined us in UK. And then even our very own Global Director of Brand Strategy, Schneider Electric, our very own judge from Hong Kong. But this current moment, I don't know where she is, okay? but it's good. I think they will share with you.
Oni, I'm in exotic. Hi, Oni. Hi, everyone. I'm in exotic Causeway Bay. So
that's good. Yeah. So I'll let them share with you their thoughts, their comments about their own judging for last year's. Okay, and then we'll come to a group discussion. So shall I bring over Javier? Shall you start first?
Great, thank you, Ani. Let me share my screen. I have a small piece to share. Let me know when you can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Fantastic. Great. So it's fantastic being here. It's such a privilege and a pleasure. And what I will do over the next few minutes, I'll try to be as quick as I can so we don't use a lot of time. What I will do over the next few minutes is to share some thoughts, suggestions that might help entrants, that might help you optimize your submissions this year. You will see that some of what I will share with you builds on what Terence has just shared with us. And then I will also share some contextual information, some contextual understanding of what's going on in Hong Kong from a consumer point of view that will help, again, sort of inform some of the entries that you will put together for this year. Let's start with some learning from last year's awards. Again, this will build upon what Terence just shared with us. Mindful that each brand faces specific challenges and opportunities in the context of its category, I still think that these general learnings and guidelines are going to apply to any brand and any category. And I sort of group these into 3 buckets, which are precisely areas where entries will be judged upon. And if I start with this sort of challenge, the context and the objective, what I like looking at the entries that I judged last year was, a clear articulation of the challenge and how the brand is turning that challenge into an opportunity. And I think Terence's was a great example of that. The challenge is clearly supported with data, with evidence. Don't leave it up to the judge to take that leap of faith. Make sure that you frame that with evidence. And that evidence can be used to frame your objectives as well. The challenge and objectives are fully aligned and clearly linked to the brand's core values. And that's very important because if it's linked to the brand core values, it lends credibility to your work, right? Context is absolutely critical, particularly when different forces like COVID, political, societal confluence. The best entries last year managed to strike a balance between these often conflicting factors really well. Objective and metrics are also very aligned. It needs to be very aligned. And feel free to go beyond financials, for example, viewership or emotional connection of your target audience with your brand. All that really matters. When we look at the insights and a strategic idea, well-articulated insights, again, based on data, on evidence, all rooted in data. A clear link and a direct link between the insight and the strategic idea underpinning your campaign. And feel free to bring an outside-in perspective. Something that I really like of a few entries last year was some drew from other industries and other categories and apply that learning to their own challenge. That was very refreshing. And then the last bucket, bringing the idea to life. We want to see a plan that is fit for purpose. And Terence talked about this. Just because some campaigns have a lot of money, don't spend it on things that really don't have a role to play in the campaign. When addressing diverse audiences, be inclusive, don't leave anyone out. And at the risk of stating the obvious, creativity is key, not just in terms of the content, but in terms of how you bring all this to life. For example, partnership with third parties, NGOs, the consumer testimonials, and how you overcome the constraints that come with COVID, for example. Right, so those are things that I thought were very, very good. Were good examples from last year. Let us now take a look at the circumstances likely to surround some of the entries this year. We at IPSOS check consumer sentiment in the context of COVID regularly, and the data that you're looking at is from February this year. And we use this for our own purpose to frame a lot of the work that we do for our clients. And this, one of the things that we ask consumers, or people rather than consumers, on a regular basis, the next round of data I think is available from June. When we ask is how, the stage at which they feel in relation to COVID, and that goes all the way from I'm still hunkering down, I'm getting ready for new restrictions, I'm really afraid, all the way to, look, the pandemic is behind me, I'm moving on. What we see is that little curve that you see in the middle, people were sort of adapting, getting ready, and suddenly the fifth wave hit us and people started to move backwards. You see people getting ready for new restrictions, people don't know what's going on. When we compare this with data from other markets around the world, in other markets around the world, 2/3 of the people that we talk to are moving on, putting COVID behind them. In Hong Kong, only 1 out of 2 residents feel that way. Obviously, that leads to feelings that are not particularly positive, and that sense of calm that we saw before the fifth wave is being replaced now with negative feelings about frustration, fear, loneliness. And this is an opportunity to engage with people with relevant and meaningful content, where brands play a role in supporting them through these difficult times. And that requires empathy. And Terence talked about empathy in his work, right? And empathy requires a deep understanding of humans, of human nature, of people in all its entirety, not just as consumers or buyers of a particular product, but as individuals with lives, fears, worries, right? And I think Terence's work clearly encapsulate how he and his team put themselves in the shoes of small businesses and look at the world from a small business point of view. That was empathy. I have an example here from IKEA that again is a great example of how a brand can look at the world from the perspective of the people that they are talking to. And with that, this is my contribution, and I can only the only thing that remains for me to say is best of luck to all participants, to all contenders this year. We very much look forward to getting your entries and see where you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Javier. Thanks for the sharing and also even the analysis and the outlook for this year and the encouragement for this year's entrance, okay? And especially, I really appreciated your involvement last year. Sitting in UK, you reviewed our entries for first round. You also joined us on second round doing the webinar judgings. And then, if I'm not wrong, you joined us at the award ceremony, right? You called in and then we saw you on the big screen. Really big involvement. Thank you so much. And now we just heard from a regional judge perspective. Why don't we bring Eva with deep knowledge about Hong Kong. Although she has a global role, but she also understands the market well. So share with us your experience about your judging for last year's Effie entries. Eva, all yours.
Okay. Well, I don't have slides, everybody. I mean, I can keep this very conversational. And I find that if I don't have slides, you listen better.
Completely.
One is from Schneider, one is from IPSOS. Okay.
So I noted down 7 thoughts to share with you, and I think some of these actually plays back very, very well to Terence's tip, as Javier has just actually alluded to. I mean, I'll start with my first one, right? I think the first thing to ask yourself when you are starting an entry is this entry bringing something interesting or new or stretching the category you are entering? Like authentically, just because you spend a whole lot of money shooting another big video and your client is pushing you to enter. I mean, the reality is that's probably not a worthy entry. And let's be authentic about that. And I've seen quite a few of these actually in the pool last year. And, and they're not a pleasure to read for a judge. And we know that it's a bit of a case where really, there's just no exceptional story to tell there. So think about that, right? So don't waste your time and don't waste your money entering it. And I think the second tip I have for everybody is actually find the right writer for the case. Finding the right writer for the case, it's about how well they know the story of the campaign and how well they know the client and how passionate they are about this particular case. And really look for a good storyteller. I think this goes back to what Terence says about, I think it's not about playing back what happened during the campaign. Actually, you have to build it like a story. And so therefore, think about the entire unfolding of actually, this particular entry as that story that you wanted to tell. And then it follows on with, of course, make your entry exciting to read. So how do we do that? And I think you saw some very clear examples of why it was much more of a pleasure for judges like myself and Javier here to read the Lexus US case. They had well put together graphs. They actually had charts. They broke up actually a lot of the deep detail work that they shared with us with lots of slides, with visuals, with, I think that actually gives a lot of depth to building out the entire case and really having us step into the space of their challenge, their customer's challenge. I mean, the agency obviously coming up with, the solution, and also ultimately building to that crescendo of actually why you made an impact and why this was amazingly different and unique. And then the fourth point I have then goes back to, it's not enough for you to tell me or any other judges that your idea is a gimmick or this is an innovation we thought of. I'm literally quoting words used in the entry, right? Or this is different to the category. And I had one where making XXX brand or product the talk of the town. This is not an idea. So language like that is very transparent, it's very shallow, that you don't know how to articulate your idea. So that's why I think it goes back to the point about actually finding the right writer for the story, finding that particular angle, and then being able to craft that challenge. And it goes back to what Terence called it, right? Which is actually a big hero needs a big enemy. Now, how do you build that big enemy, which is really ultimately your challenge? And I think the other key thing is then also you need to connect the insight. If you think about the 4 critical sections, right, of your entry, you need to connect the insight and how that springboard into your idea. It's not alone to, ta-da, we have a great idea, here it is. But I mean, I think goes back the whole point. The whole thing has to synergistically layer upon layer on each other to take you to the mountaintop. I mean, so therefore there has to be strong thread actually of one thing supporting the next thing, right? So how are you connecting the insight? How that takes you to a big idea, and how will you bridge your insight into, for example, your media strategy. And then that kind of takes you, obviously, after the big idea, what do you have? You have the results, right? And on some of the results, I looked at it, even just eyeballing the results, I'm like, the math don't make sense. And you know what? I'm one of those like annoying judges. I check your math, okay? I go take out my calculator. I'm like, this percentage don't look right. And I go back and check what you said your market share was, blah, 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 you know? And so therefore, it's the same as making your case interesting and exciting, but how are you also visualizing your results, right? Are you doing most of the work for the judge? Like Terence did most of the work for, when he said build a killer result slide, essentially what is that about? It's about actually doing the work for the judges. I look at that slide in about, I don't know, 30 seconds. I know the story. I know where he's taking me. I don't have to go through reams of sentences, you playing back to me, you know, this is my total view of my app. This is how many downloads I have. Like, I mean, that's not hardworking enough, okay? And so then the sixth point here is remembering that Terence also talked about his judging experience. Like we get given 20 to 30 cases to judge and we skim through it even quickly. It takes 10 to 15 minutes to actually adequately understand what you're talking about. So for me personally, sometimes it takes me up to 30 minutes. If I was like the case for my first read of the UX case, I put in the time and I check your results. And you know, and so therefore you have to remember the judges are doing hours and hours and hours of work on top of their day job. So any good communication is understanding the context and the environment your communication appears in. And now your communication, your entry that you work so hard building is sitting in front of me, probably very late at night when I'm very tired. So, and therefore, the easier, the more exciting you make it for me, the more likely I am to give you a great score, okay? And I think the other key thing too is really a great case video is a very powerful tool. Think about deploying that. Often, if there is a case video, it's the first thing I look at because it gives me a very quick 1 minute, 2 minute oversight of the entire story that you're building. And it gives me a hint actually at the quality of the case that I'm looking at as well. And my very final point to share with you is actually develop foresight. Because actually a winning entry, and many of you probably know this, right? The winning entry's foundation actually doesn't start when you have run a campaign and you have a great results. Actually, you pretty much know when you're planning and you're receiving a brief from a client, this is the right kind of client, this is the right kind of brief that actually potentially could be a worthy entry. So you know, all of the agency, the whole team actually needs to start developing this nose to sniff out and groom the case, right? So you are grooming the client to work with you in order for you to have that interesting or that stretch idea or to deploy some innovation that they've never tried before. So that level of foresight, you are engineering a winner even before you actually have anything. You're looking at a brief. And I think that is a real collective effort on the management level within the agency to actually, and I think, you know, many strong agencies have developed this ability to sniff out cases and or build the opportunity for themselves. So that is how they win year on year on year. And I think that is probably one of the very underrated things that they tell you. They don't tell you about this, but actually the case is built before you have any case actually. So that's the 7 things I would like to share with all of you, and hopefully they're a little bit helpful.
Wow, very honest and outright comments, I must say. Yeah, they are definitely helpful. So it's good. So right now we come to our questions stage, okay? Once again, I welcome all of you joining us today, and then a lot of those familiar names, okay? Alana, hi. Eamon, and then Rachel, Kenneth, Philip Zhang. Yeah, so as what I say, if you have questions, you can put forth your question. And don't be shy, turn on your video, join us in the discussion.
Yeah, we want to see your faces.
Exactly, yeah. Alana, how are you after 1 year? Hi! Alana actually was our 2021 committee, yes. That's good. I'll bombard the judges. Alana, you are muting.
Oh, sorry. Hi.
Hello. You look good.
Hi.
Yeah.
I was in the committee last year. So I'm the Associate Director of Marketing, Comms and New Business for OMG Group. So for that's for OMD and PhD. I actually had a question from a media agency perspective. One of the biggest challenges that we have with writing the entries is that a lot of the questions are geared more towards creative agencies or the creative elements of a campaign. What advice would you give to someone from a media agency? Because as we know, like, it's very executional based, right, from a media standpoint. So it's less of the sexy stuff which comes with the creative agency. Like, what advice would you give us in like crafting our story and making it more exciting from a judge's perspective?
That's a good question.
Would you like to start, or should I jump?
Go ahead, Eva. Go ahead.
Okay. I'd say actually, know where you bring value through media. I would say when it comes to the end point, it's not absolutely within your control, but how does media enhances where you ended up? How does the media strategy, the media thinking, the planning enhances actually the execution of actually the discovery of that great insight? Can you link the insight to your media strategy? You know, I think when you look at the Lexus case, I mean, what do they call it? Like something curious hunter, was it?
Yeah.
Right? Which is the audience, right? You know, so I mean, and then actually from that perspective, they connected also that mindset to the way they deploy their media strategy. So it wasn't only because of the big idea of how it ended up, you know, answering to what these people are interested in, but actually the media, how it actually added up into the overall execution. So I think that is a big story there to tell.
Very much so, and building on that, Eva, I could say three things. One is adding value, right? That you need to, if you have something new to tell, something that takes the industry, the category to the next level, that advances knowledge and experience, put it forward. It doesn't really matter whether you are a creative or you're a media planner. You know, bring something to the business that we can all learn from. The creativity that goes into planning to overcome challenges, and I thought again Terence's case was brilliant. You know, where sometimes the media is the message, right? How you sort of walk around the current challenges. How can you get to your target audience within the limitations that today we have to work with? That all is very, very impactful.
That answered your questions, Alana?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for your time and insights. You're like very valuable.
That's good. And any other questions from the floor? If not, we'll throw ours, okay? We do have a question here for the judges, and also based on our observations. If a campaign was entered into different categories, how important was the write-up? Should they differ? I'm sure you read a lot of campaigns last year, and then at times they enter into different categories, right? 5 or 6. But some judges complain to me, oh, they even didn't bother to change the write-up. So I like to hear this from you guys. Yeah, Eva.
Okay, you see me laughing a lot. Yes, and I mean, to me that speaks to being really lazy, because the heart of the story can stay the same, but you're answering different questions, right? So you are answering a question asking you to demonstrate, you know, I think media innovation is very different to basically talking about how you broke through in your product category. I mean, there's different ways to skew it. And, you know, or if you, actually, I think maybe this alludes to the next question, which is the whole budget and, you know, like entering it in the David versus Goliath category. I mean, then you're really talking to very, very different things that you want to highlight about your story. And so chucking the same thing in immediately, I mean, you can tell which is the original category, and then you can see which one are the convenient category that they decide, oh, let's enter it into many others. So I would say that it doesn't score you so well because you're not answering the question.
Nothing to add to that. I think you articulated that really well, Eva. I think to me, when I saw that a couple of times, unfortunately, last year, it's off-putting because essentially what you get out of that is, well, this team are trying to maximize the chances of success by spreading their entries, and frankly, just that's the opposite. You just think, well, no, not for me.
It's good. Better to, let's say, pick two where you're strong, customize 2 strong entries versus spreading it and doing 5 or 6. I would say make the effort and also develop the ability to discern actually where you potentially have more of a bias to win, and hone that. Yeah.
And I think that speaks to credibility as well, right? And authenticity. When you focus on a couple of categories, you think, well, these people know exactly where they can play, and they know where they got something to add, and that is in itself very good.
And it's also a real pleasure to read, because I read this case, and then all of a sudden you're telling me a slightly nuanced story of how it is also relevant here. And when you do that well, it's a delight.
Lovely, lovely, good answers. Okay, so shall we jump to our second question? Actually, Eva has also touched upon this in her answer just now. Does budget really matter? When you are reading that many entries, did you notice some campaigns that actually just have a small budget or what, but you are impressed by the story, by the campaign? Yes. Go ahead, Eva.
Well, I've always started, so maybe Javier, you wanna start?
I do look at that, and I think I got an underdog syndrome myself, where I tend to look at the small guys and how far they can go with the small budgets. But of course they do, the budgets do matter. I believe Effie sort of measures marketing effectiveness as well. But again, I'm sure Eva will be able to build on this. But it's not just about having tons of money to spend. It's about how you make use of that budget that you have, and how you show a return on the investment on the money that you invest.
Yes. And for me, budget actually is one of the first things I look at, because it gives me a context to what you're working from. Because before you even have a campaign or any idea, actually, the budget is given to you. It's a constraint, or an opportunity, I would say. So then I actually really pay attention to the budget and actually what you do with it on the media level. So speaking to Alana, so I do value spend it very well. Or if you don't have a lot of money, and then you actually you spend it wisely. And I appreciate that too. So it is not about big or small, but it's actually really about the applied intelligence to how you actually use this given constraint. And that's how I look at a budget.
This is cool. Okay, so I'm just looking at the time. Okay, I think to wrap up, I have one last question for our 2 judges. It's just in one single word or one single point. Okay, how could they score better? Just give me 1 point, each one of you. Who goes first? Eva?
I'll go first. I'll go first.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, my one word, which I will expand into a sentence, is strategy. Because actually, at the end of the day, even when I started in the industry, the Effies it's very clear it was a strategic award. I don't know whether people still remember it's a strategic award, but it is a strategy award. And all parts of your narrative needs to be answering to an underlying strategic wholeness. What is that strategic wholeness, right? It's a summary of when strong understanding solves your challenge and create clear and irrefutable results, because you have a strategic clarity that you've developed from your analysis and understanding. And I would say that thing, if you demonstrate it, would make an entry very powerful.
That's impressive. Javier?
Right, I'm going to, I think Eva talk about the how, I'm going to talk about the why, see next. To me, what makes something really impactful is when you solve a problem. The strategy absolutely is the way to solving the problem, but tell me first that it's a problem to be solved. It speaks to the authenticity element that you referred to earlier on, Eva. Tell me a problem that needs to be solved and how you solve it. And that is important because it means that you tick all the other boxes.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Very good answer. Yeah.
Super complimentary, actually, what we look for.
And this is very fruitful. I must say this is a very fruitful session. And then to all attendees, just be reminded that this session will be recorded, okay? And then we'll put it up on our own website accordingly. If Eva and Javier don't mind, stay behind for these, just take a look at these key days with all of us together, okay? I want to remind everybody about the key days of the 2022 Effie Hong Kong Awards. Work eligibility, you all know, okay, it's from May 1st, 2021 to July 31st, 2022. So basically, you can still catch, okay? You can still catch up. You can still push for some more good work right now. And then we have officially open for entries and early bird. Make use of the early bird discount, but do it right now because it will cut off by June 15th, June 15th. And our official deadline for submission, July 31st. Okay, we'll give you a few days for late entries, maybe till the 10th. And for Effie Awards, we always have 2 rounds of judging. So the first round will be online, and then it will start from August 20, approximately, and then for 3 weeks or so. And then we'll have a round 2 judging. This year really depends on how the situation develops, yeah, whether it's going to be online again or we could do an in-person or hybrid. We will confirm it later. But no matter what, we will announce the list of finalists in early October, and we'll try to make an awards presentation gala once again during mid-October. So these are the key days. And something you got to pay attention to is, of course, the entry fees. We are Hong Kong 4As, so obviously we have privilege for Hong Kong 4As member and non-member, and you see the difference between early bird deadline and late entry. Something to remind you, we do have special discounts. Now, first of all, if you are the first time entrant, we do have some new friends joining us today. If you are the first time entrant to Effie, we will give you a special privilege of 1,000 off the entry. And for agency folks, remember the bundle discount. If you submit 3 entries or more, you will have 10% off. And then to NGOs, we do have a special rate for NGOs. We'll come back to you later. So these are something important for you to remember. I think so much so for today because I'm looking at the time right now. So first of all, I have to thank all the judges, okay? Thank you, Eva, Javier, for joining us. And then to our attendees,